Welcome, everybody. Fantastic to have everybody here with us today. It is February 8th, 2024, a fabulous Thursday. And welcome to the Houston Community College VAST Program Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is another episode of JAWS Coffee Chat with Jennifer A. Whitaker. Today we have our host here with us, Sue Moraska, and her special guest, Becky Hauri. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Hauri.
Hauri.
Hauri, there you go. Yeah.
Okay. And of course, I am Elizabeth Overkirsch of Oh My VA Admin Services. We always like to give a special thanks to some great folks for replaying our shows on their platforms as well as our own. Zach Clayton of the PACT channel, Jay Stoyan of the Disability Channel, and Lawrence Wingate of Wingate Studios. We definitely appreciate their support and participation. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our social media pages, the groups, YouTube channels, or wherever it is you came to find out about us today. All right, I am going to pass it on over to Sue and take it away.
Thank you, EJ. And of course, thank you. Shout out to Jennifer for giving us this wonderful opportunity to have our HCC AbilityVAST podcast twice a month. We've been doing this now since September. It's just been wonderful opportunity to be able to share some of the great work that our college, Houston Community College, is doing, some of the programs and the services that are serving our students, especially those with disabilities. And our VAST Academy, of course, for those that, if this is your first time watching, the VAST Academy is a post-secondary program, comprehensive transition program that serves students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, ages 18 to 25. And it's a 2-year occupational skills career readiness certificate that they earn. And of course, we also help them transition to other programs after they finish and to go on and get even more certificates and possibly associate degrees. We also help them get employment for those that want employment right after. So we do that as well. But this particular podcast, we focus a little bit on VAST and VAST Academy, but we also like to highlight all the great work that our college is doing and the different types of programs and services that can support students, in particular those with disabilities. And so I know last time we had one of our Ability Services ADA counselors, Lisa Parkinson, was here, and she talked a lot about accommodations and reasonable accommodations and how students can apply for those. And today we invited Dr. Becky Hauri, and she is our lead Ability Services ADA counselor. She's been with us at the college for over 40 years. She's been here even before the Americans with Disabilities came out. And of course, she today is going to focus more on mental health and some of the services that we can provide to students, when they need counseling and different types of issues that can come up that relate to mental health. And she can share some of those and probably a little on accommodations as well, but more on mental health and supporting our students while they're in school with those types of services. So welcome, Dr. Hauri.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And I'll make one correction, Sue. I'm not a lead counselor at this point. I'm a regular counselor.
Well, you were one of the first.
I was. Yes, I was. And I decided to go ahead and work more closely with the students, which is what I enjoy. I like to see students make positive changes in their lives, and I like to be a part of helping to implement that. And I'm able to do that in working more with students and less with administration. So that's what I'm doing now. Well, like she said, I understand. I listened to Lisa Parkinson's podcast which was a couple weeks ago, and she was very thorough and very good. So I hope I meet the mark and come up and do as well. We have just general counseling services in the community college. And I'll tell you some of the things that we do. We do a variety of things, We work with at-risk students on suspension, probation, and continued probation. And they go to a slip session, which is, student learning Student Learning Intervention Program. There we go. I knew I could remember that acronym. But we see what's going on. Sometimes students are trying to work and take job and balance with jobs, and they think they can take a full load of classes and work 40 hours a week, and that is very difficult. So we kind of we have a general orientation session about SLIP and kind of give an overview of kind of some of the mistakes many students make. And then we have 2 follow-up appointments with them. Now, in those follow-up appointments, anything can happen. Well, what I usually do is find out from the student, first of all, well, what happened last semester that you didn't do well in classes or that you failed? What was going on? And I find out from them what's going on, and then I can determine what interventions would be appropriate. There's everything from being flooded. I mean, we've had floods here, we've had Harvey. In the pandemic, we've had different things. Being flooded to, a breakup with a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Parents are getting a divorce, or they just got out of high school and they didn't know they had to study that hard in college. So whatever the issue is, we talk with the students about that. For example, if someone had gone through the flood, we might look at basic needs such as food and shelter, get them to medical help if they need medical help with sliding scale. If there's no insurance in the family, we send them to programs where they have sliding scales and they work with people with no insurance. We have a food bank. They have a food bank across Houston, and they go out to different churches, community centers, et cetera, et cetera. We did have the food bank vans coming to us on campus. After the pandemic, we started having our own food pantries. Now we have a food pantry at the campus I'm at, West Loop. I think there's one at Central and one at Northwest. And they're going to be having one soon at Stafford. So we want to see food pantries all over all of our campuses. That was a program that was initiated through the director of counseling. And of course, it's now out on all the campuses, and it's kind of integrated where the assistant dean runs it and helps pull people from every place in to help serve there. And the students can come in and get food, and there's no questions asked. It's called a food scholarship. And so they get food for, they don't have to send in any financials or anything. And they go through the food bank just like they're grocery shopping. They pick up the groceries and they take them out to their car. The meat is frozen. So sometimes people bring ice chests. Sometimes they bring insulated bags, and it's frozen pretty hard. And so it'll last a couple hours if they pick it up, and there's still a couple of hours in class. And
Becky, I did want to mention, now that you brought that up about the food scholarship, at our Spring Branch campus at Northwest, they have the food scholarship program right next to our VAST office.
Oh, nice.
And so some of our VAST students have actually some of them have actually gotten some of the food, but today we actually had 2 that volunteered.
Wonderful.
And the director sent me a photo of them volunteering, and I was like, great, I'm so glad to see that they're giving back and volunteering but I've seen how that works, and it's wonderful. The food that for any college student, right? Any college student.
Yeah. Food insecurity is really prevalent with college students. Prices on tuition and everything have gone up. And I mean, it's been on the news and everything for the past 5 years, I would say, 5 to 7 years. Prices have gone up, and there's some students living in their car and eating hand to mouth. So if they would come to us and they had housing issues, we would send them to some of the local shelters that are available, which are usually temporary and short term, although there's some agencies in the community that help a person get into housing. But that's a process. That's not overnight they put you in housing. That's a process. And then we also would refer to a financial counselor if I get the feeling that even though the money's tight, maybe they could use some help with budgeting. Budgeting and those kinds of things are something that you learn growing up, and some people didn't learn it very well in the families they grew up in, and that's fine. I mean, we can teach them. That's what we're here for. We're looking at the student holistically and how we can help them, not only with schoolwork, but outside of schoolwork, because if you're hungry or you're tired, you're not going to be able to study very well. So, like I said, somebody coming through probation or suspension, that might be their need. They might be having a conflict with a girlfriend or a boyfriend or with families. As young adults, they're breaking away from families, and sometimes that's in breaking away in terms of forming their own identity. I mean, not breaking away in terms of leaving them, but in forming their own identity and making that separation from the family of origin, and being seen as an adult and not as a kid anymore. And so sometimes we work with students on that. Sometimes they just need plain old study skills. We've got a tutoring center. We send them that. We just kind of talk to them and see what they need. Some students don't have a goal. And a lot of times, if you don't have a goal in school, you don't know where you're going. If they can get to a career counselor or the career services and do some testing and set a goal, then they're more motivated to continue toward that goal. I know when I was working on my doctorate, statistics wasn't my forte, but I suffered through 18 hours of statistics because I wanted to get that doctorate and be a psychologist. And so you do if you've got a goal. Now, if I didn't have a goal, I wouldn't have been so interested in the hard work I had to put in to do the statistics. And that's the same with our students. Once they've set a goal, it makes it easier. And so sometimes they come in without goals. Their parents wanted them to go to school. They didn't really want to go to school. And sometimes it's best if they, get out and work for a year or two to find out that, hey, I can only get so many jobs. I know I had one student that was an ability services student that had accommodations in the classroom, and he was getting D's mostly, maybe an F and a C along with it. And I said to him, then he came back a couple of years later and he's getting all A's and B's. And I said, what's the difference? What are you doing differently now? Oh, before my parents wanted me to go to college and I didn't really want to go to college. So I didn't care. I didn't do my homework. I didn't study. That might not be what the parents want at that point in their life, but if that's what the student wants, I mean, I guess he convinced his parents by flunking out. And then when he was ready to come back, he was ready to come back. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. I mean, he's ready to do what he wants to do. But if we can push them in that direction by finding out a goal that they might have, then they go faster and easier in that direction. Hey, yeah, I'd really like to be an artist. I'd really like to be a cosmetologist. I'd really like to be an AI. I want to work with computers. Then, okay, you're going to have to do some of these other courses to get there. You're not going to do strictly AI courses all the way through. So that's another thing. I mean, people come in with everything from soup to nuts when you think of what's slowing them down. And the only way we know that is to ask them. And then we can work with them. And usually students are pretty open about what it is that's they're not doing well in. And then that's kind of an easy fix. They've got to do the work, of course, because they do the work, take the test, turn in their papers, etc. So that's working with students on, at-risk students in terms of academically at risk. And then, we also may refer them to financial aid. Maybe they came here and they didn't know about financial aid. So we refer them wherever they need to go to get whatever services they need so they can be successful. We also work with people with like a medical compassionate withdrawal, And that is if a student is, like, say, in a really bad car wreck. I know I had one person in a car wreck where the car flipped over, and she had to do physical therapy afterwards and a lot of things. She wasn't able to complete the semester. That was a lot of stress on her because her body was healing and her mind was healing from that bad car wreck. And so with the medical compassionate withdrawal, she submitted her medical documentation to a counselor, and then the counselor gathered it and passed it on to the dean for a decision. And the student was able to withdraw and not be penalized. So that's an example of a medical compassionate withdrawal. Sometimes the W shows up on your transcript and sometimes it doesn't. But if a W shows up and you have a medical reason, I tell people to always keep their documentation, because that way, later down the road, it won't count against you. So.
And I believe there's workshops that you all do sometimes as well, correct?
Yep, I just did. Sometimes we do workshops ourselves. A couple of weeks ago, I did a workshop on relaxation.
I need to go to that one. Are you doing that one again?
Relaxation. And then we did a little bit of, that was a couple Saturdays ago. We did a little bit about the self-limiting beliefs and the way you talk to yourself and the way you turn that around. And then a little bit of work with affirmations. That was a workshop I did a couple weeks ago on a Saturday. And then yesterday I had a speaker in to speak about domestic violence. And we had some of our students, and we have dual credit students here, and we had about 50 people participating. We had some of our students, and then some students, and there are students too, but they're dual credit students in the high school and taking high school and college courses. And when they all came together, there were about 50. And a woman who was the director of the Harris County Domestic Violence Coalition did the presentation, and it was excellent. And what students were able to learn, it was real interesting because a couple people that came down were voluntold to come. And that's what they said. When the presenter said,
voluntold.
Voluntold, yes. My supervisor were voluntold. Then afterwards, those two gentlemen came up to me and said, "That was really good, Becky. We really enjoyed that." And I said, "Would you come again?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "Would you recommend it to others?" And they said, "Yes." And I thought that was a pretty good thing. And then a couple high school kids that had to leave because the bell rang before the program was over. But I caught them on the way out and I said, "Well, did you enjoy this presentation?" "Yes." "Do you think they both said, "Oh, yes." I mean, they were really vibrant. And then I said, "Well, do you think your colleagues and some of your other students that didn't come, your friends, would enjoy this?" "Yes, definitely." So that's always a good resounding, you think, and the presenter was very engaging. I had heard her speak before, and I knew she would be very engaging. She focused on domestic violence as a crime, and she looked at how it impacted everybody in the room, because everybody in the room knew somebody or another that had been involved in a domestic violence situation. And people asked questions about what they could do, and one of the biggest things she said was to speak up, because people come to her that have maybe witnessed domestic violence as a child and don't say anything, and one of the partners, one of the spouses ends up dead. And one of the things they say is, "I wish I would have said something." And so she made it her mission to go out and inform people so that they say something, And so that's an example of one outreach that we do. I'm working with somebody in rec sports. In a couple weeks, we're going to do a health fair, and I've got some people coming that the rec sports person kind of brought the the health and wellness people in, and I kind of reached out to the mental health people, and we brought in a group that does free counseling with domestic violence, and they cover many languages: Afghanistan, Farsi, Spanish. So a lot of the immigrants could go there because they are facing these issues too. But it's free services. They're going to be there. Another program that offers free and sliding scale mental health services will be there. And a person from the Rose will be there. And she works with breast cancer. And she's going to give a presentation on not your grandmother's breast cancer, because 1 in 7 women are getting breast cancer these days. And it happens. I mean, I've had people 18 years old that have been diagnosed with breast cancer. It starts very early, not a bunch, but there's some outliers that are there.
Even men can get it.
Men can get it also, yes. So that's the kind of outreach we'll do. Let me see another.
All the different months, our college is really good at all the different months for different, whether it's cultural but we have like suicide prevention or depression screening or something like that.
Yeah, this month is dating violence awareness, so that we covered the other day. International boost your self-esteem. Well, I think the presentation I gave a couple Saturdays ago did that. And what's the other one? American Heart Month. There's a little quiz you can take online. All of these are listed in the counseling website. There's a little about where to go for these meetings, and you can take the little quiz online and see ways to keep your heart healthy every day.
I'm going to have to share that with our students because I didn't realize that one.
Yeah.
I know it's Heart Health Month this month, right?
Yeah. And then we also, what was I going to say? Yeah, it's Heart Health Month. So that's the kind of thing we do. And, we look at mental health. And I guess one of the things I'm looking for is what can we do for prevention? And because if there is a domestic violence situation, that comes to the counselor, and then we work with them and make sure that comes down through our Office of Institutional Equity. We make sure the people are safe and get them to the resources they need, because we've got experts in town, and work with them until they get there. We've got experts in town. Sometimes after a domestic violence situation happens, a person's too traumatized to take steps right away. So we support them during that time, and then, make sure that they get to where they need to go.
Well, I do want to mention that I know that when students come to counselors, and of course, when they come to those of the Ability Services ADA counselors, it doesn't matter whichever counselor they come to. If they're going through something like, and they need some outside resources that maybe HCC doesn't even offer. I know you guys are really good all the time at connecting them with those resources. I specifically was thinking about suicide prevention, Suicide Awareness Month, because I know that's been kind of a big area for college. It seems like, especially during the pandemic, I think that was.
It was, yeah. I think the pandemic was hard on a lot of people. Just about everybody across the board was impacted one way or the other by the pandemic. And I noticed in coming back to school, some people that had a little bit of anxiety, social anxiety, and they kind of got over it in coming to school. And then pandemic hit and they weren't around people. They kind of had to go step by step to get back on campus. And everybody was impacted one way or another.
I think depression,
big
anxiety. I guess even those anxiety for testing and things like that, right? Testing anxiety. I know that specific disabilities, depending on the disability, they can get a special accommodation if they have anxiety, correct?
Right. Yeah. We can give them extra time. We can put them in a private room. If somebody is, like ADHD, somebody tapping on a pencil during a test, just just because they're thinking, can drive somebody with ADHD right up the wall. And so if they're in a separate room by themselves, they don't hear anybody tapping on the pencil. Or sometimes people whisper to themselves a little bit, and you only hear, but
Are you guys still doing depression screening during October like you used to do?
We will be doing it next October. We were to work with the, we've worked in the past with Harris County Health, with Harris County Psychiatric Association. There we go. And we had a lot of UT physicians and residents along with our own counselors screening. And it was a big production. We didn't do that. We're out of the auditorium right now because we're doing some remodeling. So we don't have the space, but we do have mental health things that you can take yourself online that you can click when you go to our website. And you can also click to see a counselor if you want to. So we've got these things and we want to make sure that people know about them. And we will be doing depression screening, when we get our space back again.
That's wonderful, because I think any college student, not just those with disabilities, go through these things and need these services. And I know I was so excited when I heard, I don't know if it's been a couple of years now that our college has been doing, Dr. Manaz Kalani has been spearheading that, but those mental health first aid certification. I went through that and got that. And I know some of the other members of my VAST team did get that certification. I'm so happy to see that they continue to offer that every semester to our employees.
Right. That gives you an overview of the different mental health, different diagnoses that somebody might have. It's really good. An overview of the different diagnoses somebody might have, how that behavior is seen. And not that you have to memorize it, but the most important part is what you can do to calm them down and get them to a counselor. Or what intervention, how to calm them down rather than to exacerbate the situation. And the same thing when we do suicide awareness presentations. How can you look for the warning signs and know what they are and be able to get the person to help? Don't leave them alone, depending on the kinds of things they say. If someone says, they've had a baseball that a famous pitcher signed or something that's always been their favorite thing, and that's the thing they're so proud of, and they've always every time somebody walks into their house, that's the first thing they show them, and they just are really proud and followed that player, et cetera, and then they want to give that away. That's a warning sign a lot of times, because you don't usually give away a prized possession unless unless you're not going to be around and you want somebody special to have it, somebody that you're close to. So you get things like that when you go to some of those. I've done suicide prevention workshops where and then both students and faculty have come to them, where they look at the signs and stuff and increase their knowledge. A lot of times people are afraid to talk about suicide, or a common reaction of, if somebody talks about it, let's not talk about it anymore, and maybe their thought will go away. But not talking about it makes it even worse. It goes down deeper, and because the person feels, not only I'm having these awful feelings, but I shouldn't talk about them, which doesn't lead, opening up the door to talk to them, sometimes prevents, and then getting help prevents that from happening, because a lot of suicides can be prevented with the right interventions. And a friend, a neighbor, a family member can make some of the first interventions when they know the warning signs. So we do that every year, and we'll have that coming out. And the other thing we have is online Counselor's Corner. And some of the they're little tapes about little like a podcast, but it's a what do you call the place? Just the little tape that's not a podcast. Little snippets.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Snippets online, like talking about kindness, self-care, mental health, suicide prevention, first generation college students. Many of our students at Houston Community College are first generation.
How do we access those, Becky?
You just go to the counseling website, or you can Google, because I was looking at that today to look at, you can Google HCCS Counselor Corner, and you can come up with those. They're 5 to 8 minutes. They're not very long, but it just gives you kind of an overview. And like I say, you can listen to one of those, and then you say, hey, I'd like to talk to a counselor about that. You can continue to look at the counseling website. You can click on to see how to get in touch with a counselor. Dealing with holiday stress, we did during Christmas. ADA for dual credit students, ADA, men's mental health, the loud silence. And the loud silence is basically when people have mental health issues and you notice a difference in them, but you don't say anything. And so by saying something, again, you can help. And it doesn't have to be as serious as suicide. Of course, it could be something like suicide, but maybe they're not going to class. They don't seem to be as excited about their career anymore. They don't, they're skipping classes. They never used to skip class, those kinds of things. And you notice that and you don't say anything. You say, well, maybe they'll get over it or whatever. But sometimes you can reach out and just say, hey, what's going on? I noticed you haven't been in class lately. We miss you. And see if they can share. So if people's behavior changes even in a little way, somebody you know and care about, or if it's even not even somebody that you know real well, a lot of times, you never know what's going on in somebody's mind. If it's just a classmate that hasn't showed up, it's a very welcoming and kind thing to say, hey, we missed you. Are you okay? And, glad to see you're back. And a lot of times that can open up doors, and you don't know what they've been through. You don't know how much that might mean. So that's kind of part of being kindness and being aware of the loud silence at the same time. What other things? Emotional intelligence, setting goals and reaching them, that kind of thing. So we offer all of that.
And I think you always consult with faculty as well, because I'm sure many faculty reach out to you. And
yes, they do.
When they have students with disabilities, even though they have an accommodation letter, many times they reach out to you for support as well.
They do, because they don't know how to handle, or they want something came up in the classroom, and I may give them a way to handle it that is respectful of everybody, but still addresses the issues. A simple thing is a faculty member may come to me and say, I've got this student in class and he or she seems to have a hard time keeping up and taking notes and stuff like that. But, it's inappropriate for the faculty member to go up to the person and say, hi, Sue, I noticed you seem to be a little far behind in taking notes. That'll make the person feel bad. And so, I'll give them a simple suggestion like, well, why don't you say, explain, everybody has to write in their syllabus about accommodations, but the syllabus can get long and a lot of students don't read it. And so they could say to the class, if you had accommodations in high school, if you have a learning disability, a physical disability, or a psychiatric difference, you may qualify for accommodations. And if you do qualify for accommodations, you can get those by going to a counselor, an ADA counselor, and getting accommodations. So if that's announced in class, another example is sometimes people aren't respectful of one another in class. And, I'll tell the teacher, well, just say that's a class expectation. And, don't allow people to talk about somebody else, or, it's kind of a classroom management. But there's other things when they actually do have the disability and they want to know how to say something or how to talk to them, And I can a lot of times give teaching strategies or give suggestions on what to say or how to proceed that makes it comfortable for the faculty member and makes it comfortable for the student. And the end goal is the student's needs are met. And the faculty member is concerned about the student's needs, but they're just not sure of how to approach it. And so, when faculty members will reach out to you if you've already talked to them about different things. And that's nice. That's nice because that's kind of, again, that's prevention. That's prevention when they can reach out. And
I do remember not that many months ago, it might have been last year, Dr. Kalani, I believe, might have been Lisa Parkinson. I'm not sure who initiated it, but it was a webinar, I guess you would call it, webinar. And they invited the Monarch School that specializes in neurodiverse, those on the spectrum. And they came out and did it for any faculty or staff that wanted to attend. It was during lunchtime, I think. I thought that was really good because I get a lot of calls, being that I serve students with intellectual developmental disabilities, those who are neurodiverse. I do get a lot of faculty emailing and calling me, asking for advice or asking for, and I admire that they're doing that because they're wanting to know what more they can do, above and beyond a letter of accommodation. And I think that that was really helpful. I remember I attended that one and I was really happy to see that they did invite Monarch. But now, Dr. Hauri, do you go out? Do you still get invited to go to high school still sometimes to those transition fairs and things like that?
Yes. And then go to high schools, and I go to high schools and talk with dual credit students, talk about college. One of the things that's real popular is I do the simple relaxation techniques, and that involves deep breathing and that kind of thing. I've done that a lot, and in high schools, the students usually like that. It's nice. It's nice if you can talk to students and they enjoy the presentation or they feel like they got something from it.
Well, now would you be willing to come and talk to some of our VAST students, or either in person or virtual? We need to invite you to.
Sure, I'd be willing
to do that,
to
maybe.
Yeah. And I was also thinking about I could talk a little bit about self-limiting beliefs, if you think that would be helpful.
Oh, yes.
For this in this program, and this is a little bit. This is a slice of what I did in my last presentation. It's not the whole presentation by any stretch of the imagination. But
I think a lot of us sometimes,
even
if we're not a student, looking at your goals and what you want to do, if you're getting ready to retire or you're moving on to something, you have a dream or a goal and you just can't. You can limit. You don't realize how you self-limit yourself.
Yeah. People talk about themselves. A lot of times they're much harder on themselves than they are on their friends. Like you may say to yourself, it can be something simple. I'm running late to get to this, to get over to this friend's house. I said I'd be there at 2 and it's now 2:30 and I didn't plan for the traffic and the traffic was horrific. And, I'm so stupid. Why didn't I leave earlier? That would be, that would be a simple thing that I don't know if, that a lot of people do. They're much harder on themselves. They would never say something like that to a friend. Or if somebody entered their home, they wouldn't say, "You're stupid. How come we were going to meet? How come you're so late?" Or, you don't usually come down on another person, the same way you come down on yourself. And there's a lot of people that do that. Sometimes you get it from going to school for a long time. I mean, I know I went to a webinar, and it was mostly psychiatrists and psychologists. This lady was an expert on different medications and what different medications were good for, and she was very, very knowledgeable. Well, it was a webinar, and I couldn't get on. And I knew I thought I was doing everything right, but I was thinking to myself, well, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not doing everything right. Let me try. So I finally emailed in and said, I'm not able to get on. Is there another link, or is there a problem? And they wrote back to me and said, everybody's having trouble getting on. We're fixing the technical difficulties now. And I just went, and I said, okay, they'll send me a link. but then then I had a great big sigh of relief. So I said, okay, it's not me and help is coming. So I don't have to worry anymore. But after I got on for about the first 5 minutes, because at that point I'd taken a deep breath and I was pretty happy. There were a lot of people that talked about how anxious they were and what a hassle it was. And the speaker was very wound up about it. I'm sure, and I see EJ smiling. I'm sure this is something that she does, and you know, maybe you do it a lot more smoothly. But the speaker was the speaker was very stressed, and so she needed to take. And these were all professionals that know these things. But a lot of them didn't take a deep breath afterwards. And she came in, and I mean, it took, and this isn't a criticism, it's life. I think, again, like I said, when somebody goes to school for so long, they have certain expectations. Well, a lot of it, and it doesn't necessarily mean, but I think that group of people that has gone to school for so long, were used to getting things right and doing them right, and not having this outside interference because in front of a group, they could have talked about anything, you know, and just been very comfortable. But with that added technology, that really threw the speaker off. And she didn't calm down for the first 15 minutes. I mean, I could just tell in her voice and stuff. It took her 15 minutes. And that's not a criticism. I might have done the same thing. I don't know, you know.
But if you listen to the very first few podcasts that we did, and the ones we do now, it's like I'm a totally different person. Yeah. Because the technology was so alien to me, and it just flabbergasted me.
Yeah. And you felt like a dummy, probably, you know, like, oh my goodness, what can, you know, you would never call a friend a dummy that was learning that. You'd say, well, you got to learn it.
Everybody's got to learn sometime.
Yeah. During the pandemic, we all started doing virtual things, and people were, you know, that was the big thing. You're muted, or, you know, there were so many different things.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of how self-limiting beliefs, you talk to yourself in a way that you wouldn't talk to other people. You know, you talk to yourself a lot of times. And so, and sometimes it's, you know, sometimes they get that from parents. Sometimes they get it from authority figures. Sometimes they get it because they're perfectionists, or they want to do well. I mean, I don't think those are necessarily bad things, but it's good to remember, you know, this wasn't passed on to you. If you got it from a family member, a parent, or an authority figure, this wasn't passed on to you intentionally. They didn't say, now, what can I do for my kid that'll make them feel real bad, you know, when they mess up? I don't think any parents think like that, but it happens. Another thing you see, well, like with little kids, you know, and I think about this a lot, little kids that are in the hospital when they're early, they get shots and stuff, and, you know, IV tubes hooked up to them when they're little, and they're little enough to talk, and it feels like torture. You know, they feel like, oh, you know, so they might think, well, hospitals are really bad. They torture me. And so you need to come in and be kind of reassuring. So anyways, I think it's good if you can start saying to yourself, I mean, I felt bad for the other people, but it wasn't my place to reassure them because the speaker was speaking, you know. I did something on the notes. I said, oh, we all had problems, but we're here now, or something like that. But, and it's good to be in, you know, and that might have smoothed it out a little. And if the speaker, although I'm not sure that I would have been able to do it, if the speaker could have said that would have kind of calmed her down and calmed the rest of the group down. But you learn by doing. So next time she might think to do that. And I can look outside as an observer and say that. If I were in that situation, I might not say it so easily. So if you do, and most people do, if you are real critical of yourself, one of the things you might want to do is just say some nice things, you know.
I still remember back to my college days when I was going through a really rough period, And one of my professors that I was not close to at all commented, "Are you okay? You know, I am always available to talk if you ever need anybody." I had no clue that anybody even noticed. And I
Yeah.
remember that to this day, and that's been over 30 years.
Wow. Wow.
So
And
yeah,
that's
it
something
makes
hard
a
to remember.
huge difference.
It does. It does. So if you're aware of that, you can be kind to others, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Or some people might say, well, I'm just not good at math, or I'm just not good at that, or I'll never be able to do this, or I'll never be able to do that. And when you say that, that's not, you have to use more positive, right? Positive self
yeah,
affirmation.
Sometimes that's an outreach for attention too, to have somebody reinforce, "Oh, you'll get it. Here, let's see what you need help with." It's a way of, it's a crying out for help when they start negative talk about themselves.
yeah. A lot of times I'll walk somebody down to tutoring and I'll tell them, okay, this is the tutors. This is how you, and it may sound simple, but sometimes students with differences, it's a little harder to take that step. Although I think it's hard for some of my probation students I've walked down to tutoring. If I don't feel like they're going to go down, or if I feel like they're a little bit scared or a little bit shy, or sometimes, you know, just different diagnoses, I'll walk down with them, and I'll walk down to testing with them and say, well, this is a testing person. She's really nice. She'll help you every time you come, you know. Yep. And they will. And they will. I mean, you know, it's not a lie.
I think that really
she's not going to go down there and say, what are you doing? Nobody's going to say to her, what are you doing here? You know, they're going to be nice. But I like to set up that positive framework for the students when they go to tutoring Absolutely. Or when they go to testing, so that they know who they'll see and that it's okay. And, you know, it's
well, you do that also when you refer students to VAST. I noticed you know, some people could just, here's a name, here's a number, you always make that phone call, you know, to introduce. And so that way you're connecting them. But I think that makes a difference, because I think all of us, I know I could think of, while you were talking, I could think of different instructors in high school and even in college that, you know, you didn't believe in yourself, but they believed in you, or they went the step further to help you. And you don't forget those that helped you.
Yeah.
Whether it's a professor or a counselor.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fabulous. Do you have any announcements, like any events coming up that you want to?
Well, we've got a health fair. We've got a health fair coming up at the West Loop campus on the 20th of February. We've got a speaker speaking on breast cancer. We've got tables set up with different, you know, signs, symptoms, you know, just different things like that you would need to for whatever they're offering. Like I said, we've got free counseling services, we've got some fitness, we've got some healthy recipes, heart healthy stuff, etc. Just an overview, overall health service. I'd like everybody on West Loop campus, and those that are around. I know it sounds like this podcast goes all over the country, so I don't think they'll come.
It does. It's all over the internet.
All over the internet. But we'd love to have you stop by and see what we have to offer.
Excellent. Sue, do y'all have any?
Thank you, Dr. Hauri. I'm so happy that I know how wonderful you are and all the great work that you do. But it was great to have you be able to, everyone else, to hear what we have. And I learned a lot new as well that I wasn't even aware of. So I'm going to make sure that our students and faculty see some of these workshops and things that you've mentioned, and the counselor's corner, right? That was another one.
That's just really nice, because if you're feeling down or something, just find one that fits and click on it and listen, you know? And
all these workshops and things that you talked about today and the events coming up, those are on the website, hcc.edu. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You're muted.
I'm muted?
HCCS, yeah.
HCCS.edu.
And then, of course, probably counseling. There's you probably could do /counseling, or just type in the search counseling and it'll go right to counseling page. And actually, I think Dr. Hauri is on one of the videos there introducing counseling. Aren't you the one doing the video? I think you are.
I'm on a couple with Accommodations.
I remember seeing a video with you. Yes.
Okay.
Well, I did it. Yeah, that was on HCC TV, I think.
But I seen one on the website one day when I went there.
Okay. Yep, I'm on there too.
Cool.
You're the expert.
All
Well,
right.
thank you, Sue.
Well, we
I've been
definitely
around
want
for a
to.
while, and I like what I do.
Well, we definitely thank you for being here with us, both you and Sue. And thank everybody who is listening today or happens to come across us on a recording on some of our platforms. We are here every other week, every other Thursday at 2:30, 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern. Time zones always get me messed up. I think they do everybody.
And thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate this opportunity. I really
definitely. And our next podcast will be February 22nd. So be sure to join us for that. And again, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel or our social media pages where you found us. And check out our website, jensbooksandmore.com, to find out more about this and all our other shows that we have throughout the weeks. So until next time, we wish you a productive and enjoyable week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.